Everyone thinks breaking a pair engine neighbors is about the leather getting softer. They wait for the shell to relax or the vamp to crease, but they're looking at the wrong thing. The real transformation isn't what you'll see on the outside. It's what's happening underneath your foot. From the footbed molding to your foot shape, to the midsole finally learning how to reflex. Those internal changes are what actually make a boot feel comfortable. In this video, I'm using 3 different leathers to show what actually changes during break-in. Steerhide, chrome tan leather, and horsebutt. Break-in goes far beyond softer leather. It's the stage where the entire boot gradually settles into the shape of your foot. So let's go part by part and see what's actually happening inside the boot. First real change is something you feel underfoot. When entering the boot is brand new, you are sitting on top of the leather, not in it. That insole feels like a flat slab of stone. It's hard, it's generic, and hasn't yet acknowledged the unique shape of foot. But after a few wears, that one side fits all feeling disappears. The ball of your foot starts to clean its territory. The heel begins to carve out its specific pocket, and the arch finally recognizes your shape. This is the first stage of the handshake between you and the boot. With the engine boots, this matters more than almost any other footwear, because the footbed is what actually locks you in place. Without laces to tighten, you rely on the custom molded pressure to keep your foot from sliding and your heel from lifting. Once that shape forms, the boot gains a level of stability that no strap can provide. It's not soft yet. It's the boot finally learning exactly where it stands. The second stage of the break-in is something people often ignore because you can't see it, but you can definitely feel it. If you're new entering the bus, feel like you're walking on 2 steep planks of wood. It's not just the leather, it's the midsole refusing to budge. When a midsole is brand new, the front boot doesn't want to bend. Every step feels like a fight, where you're forcing the boot to move against its view. But this is the most important part of the process, because the leather on the upper can only move properly if the foundation underneath it starts moving too. Think of the midsole as the anchor. If you're still stiff, the vamp can't crease naturally. It just gets crushed. But once the midsole finally learns where the foot wants to hinge, the entire upper begins to follow your lead. This is why the boot finally starts feeling like an extension of your walk, rather than a heavy object attached to your leg. This also explains why no 2 pairs of engine nipples ever look exactly the same after a year. The bend point isn't just about the specs of the boot. It's a unique map of your strength, your weight, and exactly where you force that midsole to give in. Once the bottom of the boot yields, the real character of the leather can finally start to show. Once the foundation is moving, the vamp finally becomes active. Since you can't tighten lace, the vamp is what determines if the boot is a comfortable hug or a painful pinch. During the stage, the leather stops being a flat sheet and starts becoming a 3D map of your movement. This is where you see the first real character emerge, but the personality of that character depends entirely on the leather. Steerhide is professional, is firm and predictable. The creases it develops are smooth and gradual, showing its breaking in a controlled, classic way that looks better with the air mile. Chrome tan leather is the misleading one. The name makes it sound like it should be easy, but it doesn't wrap around your instep right away. It needs time for the vamp to form a natural bend point before the boot starts moving without strut. Horsebutt is a rebel. It stands its head tension and is stubborn. At first, you might feel like the leather is actively resisting your strut, but when it finally yields, deep defined rows start to appear. They are a battle to break in, but visually, they are one of the most rewarding leather out there. This is the stage where the boot stop looking like it came out of the box and start looking like it belongs to you. The toolbox where those internal changes finally become visible. This is where the profile of the boat begins to change. If your engine and the boats have a structured toe, the ship's going to stay fairly stable. The weather around it will increase, but the bump will keep this profile. However, if we're gone with the unstructured toe, this is where things get interesting. Without the stiffener, the toe begins to collapse or flatten. It loses that formal factory rounded look and starts to take on a lower, sleeker profile. A lot of people look for this kind of toe collapse because it gives the boot a more vintage warrior look. But just like everything else we discussed, the toe doesn't change on its own. Its shape is a direct result of how the midsole bends and how the vamp rolls. If the boot is too long, that crease will happen in the wrong spot, potentially crushing the toe box in an awkward way. But when the fit is dialed in, the toe and the vamp edge together in a clean, consistent way. Whether you prefer a structured box or collapsed flat toe look, this is the stage where the front of the boot finally stops looking like a steel toe work boot and starts looking like a piece of heritage footwear. As the front of the boot begins to flex and toe settles in, the way the heel moves starts changing as well. The next stage is the one that worries many new owners. What happens at the heel? Most people try the fatal injury in their boots way too early because of heel slip. But here's the truth. Some heel movement is perfectly normal and often necessary in brand new pro boot. When that midsole is basically stiff board and the footbed is the flat slab, your heel has to lift because the boot isn't yet flexing without strand. You are essentially walking out the boat like a heavy sleeper. But as the braking progresses, that movement should shift from sleeping to controlled. As the insole takes on shape and the outsole begins to flex, the heel pocket starts to cup your foot. It transforms from generic space into a custom molded lock. If you are wearing Horsebutt, this transition can feel dramatic. Because the leather is so dense, it might feel like your heel is moving a lot at first. Much of that movement comes from the leather resisting the flex. Once the leather settles in, that slip often goes away. With chrome-tanned leather, this settling takes much longer. Because the leather offers more resistance, Steerhide sits right in the middle. A steady, gradual transition where the heel slip slowly fades into a secure set every time you step in. Just remember, there's a difference between braking movement and a bad fate. If your foot sliding forward, or your heels lifting more than half inch, after the sole starts flexing, no amount of wear is going to save a bit that's simply too big. But if the instep is secure, trust the process. The heel will lock in over time. Finally, we reach the part that everyone notices, the shaft. When engine neighbors are fresh out of the box, the shaft can look a bit sterile. It's perfectly round, stands completely upright, and almost too clean. But as you wear them, the silhouette begins to transform. The shaft starts to lean, the ankle begins to curl into natural folds, and the top opening loses that factory round shape to follow the line on your leg. But here's the key. The shaft is a follower, not a leader. You won't truly relax until the footbed and midsole have already given in. This is where the leather tabs really show their true color. Steerhide is keen with structure. It collapses in a moderate, clean way, keeping much of its shape while still showing its spin through the mouth. Chrome-tanned leather stays firm around the ankle at first. The shaft doesn't start dripping right away, so the folds usually come in slowly with more wear. Horsebutt is where patience really pays off. You get those sharp, architectural folds and that crinkled green movement that you just don't find in most other leathers. So between Steerhide, black chrome, and Horsebutt, which one breaks in first? Steerhide makes the change easier to read. The vamp starts to roll. The Instep pressure becomes more familiar, and the boot slowly feels more predictable every time you wear it. Chrome-tone leather often looks clean on the outside, even as the boot is already changing underneath. The footbed and heel may start settling before the leather shows much personality. That's why it can feel stubborn. The boot is changing, but it doesn't always show much at first. Horsebutt is almost the opposite. It can feel resistant for a while, but once it starts moving, the change becomes very visible. The rolls look sharper, the shaft develops more definition, and the leather reacts more strongly to light and movement. If I had to sum it up, Steerhide gives you a readable break-in. Black chrome changes quietly before it looks worn. Horsebutt gives you a dramatic visual payoff. And that's why engineer's break-in can be so hard to judge from the outside. The boot may start changing underfoot before the leather shows much on the surface. If you are breaking a pair right now, do not only look for creases or shaft collapse. Pay attention to where the boot bends, how the heel moves, and whether the pressure across the instep is starting to settle.